Welcome, Mr. Ladoja. Welcome, Mr. Barrister Inyang. Welcome, Doctor. And okay, Ms. Edidium, you can unmute your mic. Good to have you to this conversation. Today, we'll be talking about agriculture in Cross River States and the role of agriculture for community and Cross River development. Edidium?
Yes, I'm back on. It actually went off trying to go live. So yeah, I'm back on. Let me just be sure that we are live and that we are still recording. Okay, yes, we are. Basically, I'll just go on to where I left off. All right, so I'll read a few ground rules. But before I do that, I'd like to reiterate again that Mr. Bassey has sent his sincere apology, saying that of course he's unavoidably absent, and we're going to be running the show on his behalf. You know, everything is going to run smoothly. So while that is ongoing, I'd like to say that everyone except for the facilitators and the guests will be muted while the event is in progress so that we can manage communications on the background. If you have a question, please feel free to use the reactions button at the bottom at the top of your Zoom, wherever it is in your software. Use that button to raise your hand and we shall unmute you and give you the opportunity to speak or to ask questions when you need to. And of course, we give preference to those whose cameras are switched on. So please do well to turn on your camera when you want to speak. If you are on Zoom, please feel free to use the comment section or the chat box to share any comments or questions. And those I'll be watching live on Facebook and on YouTube as well, please do well to use the comment sections or the chat box to drop your comments or your questions. This event is being broadcast on Sparkling 92.3 FM Calabar, and we know that we have lots of people listening right now. If you have your questions, if you want to make comments, please feel free to send an SMS or WhatsApp chat, SMS or WhatsApp chat only to 0806 756 6448. Again, I'll take the number again, 0806 756 6448. Please only SMS or WhatsApp chat. And if you have any topics you'd like to recommend for us to engage on in the future, please feel free to drop that in the comment section. All right. At this point, I'd like to welcome us to the 17th edition of the Crush of TCM Conversations. Just a minute, I just noticed my video. The 17th edition of TCRM Conversations with Esau Bassey. My video is okay. While I'm posting on my video, we'll just move on. And the TCRM Conversations is basically an initiative of the Cross River movement, which is aimed at engaging and exchanging ideas that can foster the development of Cross River State, And of course, TCRM is a non-governmental, non-profit, and non-partisan organization that is working to promote the values of government in Cross River State. So today our focus, like I've already mentioned, is on agriculture in Cross River State. And for an overview, agriculture stands as a cornerstone for sustainable development, economic growth, and food security. And in the heart of Cross River State, the agriculture sector plays a pivotal role in ensuring that, there is continuous flow of food and economic growth. Now, the Cross River movement recognizes the importance of fostering dialogue and understanding in this domain. And that's why we've put together today's conversation, which promises to be an insightful conversation that delves into the current state, challenges and prospects of agriculture in Cross River State. So sit back and relax as you join us to the end of this event. Without further delay, I'd like to specially welcome our guest speakers, our panelists on the show. We have Dr. Johnson Ebokpo, who is the Honorable Commissioner, Ministry of Crop and Irrigation Development. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Muyi Ladoja, who is the CEO of Real Plantation Limited, and Barrister Etim-Inyang, who is also the CEO of ChallawaRiver Nigeria Limited. And lastly, I'd like to say a big welcome to Dr. Emmanuel Bassey, Effa. He is an academic doctor from the Department of Crop Science, University of Calabar. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to make welcome our panelists today. Okay. So like you already know, this is a conversation. There's nothing, we're not having this conversation to challenge us, but I mean to challenge us negatively, but to challenge us positively in ensuring that we're able to extract ideas, innovations, positive impact at the end of the day. So I would like to start by asking a few questions to Honorable Johnson Ebokpo, who is the Honorable Commissioner for Ministry of Crop, Irrigation and Development. Mr. Johnson, if you can unmute your mic, would like to hear what the current government or the current government administration, what their plans are towards agricultural development in Cross River State.
Hello, good afternoon, Edidion. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
All the entire team of the Cross River movement. First of all, let me correct the introduction. My name is Johnson Ebokpo. I'm the Commissioner for Agriculture and Irrigation Development. Crop production is one aspect of agriculture. You may wish to correct it so that if you have a correspondence or something next time, just kindly note it.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
So, Edidion, what was your question? You asked what is the what? The direction?
Yes, the direction and the vision for agriculture, this present government.
Oh. Okay, so to answer your question, I would just say a few things. We all agree that agriculture, especially crop production, is actually the mainstay of our economy. It creates more than 70% of the jobs that we have in Cross River State. Is basically centered around agriculture. So we can conveniently say that agriculture is the mainstay of Cross River State's economy. So what this administration has decided to do is to look at agriculture in two ways. One is to look at how to intensify commercial agriculture. The second way is to support socially. There are some aspects of agriculture that require special interventions. And so we're going to be doing that. So the focus basically is trying to see how much more agriculture can contribute to the GDP of Cross River State. And we are being very, very, very intentional with some of our programs. If you notice, I'm looking a bit, can you hear me? You notice I'm looking a bit ruffled, yes. Just because I'm also coming from an inspection.
Okay.
Usually the thing with agriculture is that you have to understand that agriculture is not necessarily a short-term activity. It is a long-term one. And as such, if you want to scale up what we are doing in agriculture, it's important that we put in the right policies. Policies that give clarity, and policies that enable government set the tone for private investments, especially in the area of commercial agriculture. So those are some of the things we are doing now. So the policy thrust of this administration is to use agriculture as a wealth creating tool, as a job creating tool. We have come to understand that we have nothing other than agriculture. That is where we are. So by the time we go on in this engagement, I'm sure you may want to know specifics, because you asked me a general question. What is the vision? And the administration is saying that for this 8 years, the focus is basically on intensifying commercial agriculture and intervening. You have different types of, in agriculture, you have some value chains that are long-term in nature. You have some that are short-term. So for Cross River State, the areas we can intervene, usually that are long-term, they are specialized mechanisms to support long-term agriculture. So I see people here who are involved in oil palm, like Muyi. Specialized mechanisms to support things like oil palm, cocoa, and the likes. But for smaller things like grains, we have programs that are market-led. What we want to do is to make Cross River a green economy as well, outside of just the commercial tree crops or cash crops that you know, cocoa, rubber, oil palm. We also think that we have the comparative advantage to grow grains such as paddy, rice, such as maize. And not only do we have the comparative advantage in terms of soil, in terms of topography, climatic conditions, we also have the market here. We have the market here. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. I'm just speaking to you generally. I'm sure you may have some specific questions. I'll be waiting. But generally, it's just to assure everybody that the administration is focused sincerely on agriculture. We have had a couple of interventions. You agree with me? We've had things like FADAMA, we've had the commercial agri schemes, we've had other multilateral interventions. But in terms of actual productivity on the ground, you can see that in spite of all the comparative advantages we have in Cross River State, we are really not meeting the benchmark. We are really nowhere. We are still at the subsistent level. We just have a few commercial farms in Cross River State. So the idea is to scale up. The idea is to scale up. And the only way that can be done is when government decides to put in targeted policies to scale up all the activities around the various value chains in agriculture. And that's what we're doing. And we cannot do it alone. So part of government's focus is to work with the private sector to drive the reforms in the agricultural sector. So I don't think I would say more than that. I wait for other questions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. That's very brilliant. Would like you to can give us some a few more minutes to take us through the specifics. What is the government planning to do in terms of, all the areas of agriculture in Cross River State? It could be in the area of fish farming, like we have someone from the fish farming sector, the oil, cocoa, resources, making resources available, water resources, and all of that, to just take us through the specifics, including the policies as well.
Okay, yeah, everything that the ministry does is centered around policy. That's all the ministry. Ministry provides policy support. It is the policy support that is actually the enabling environment for businesses to thrive. These days, we don't want to use the word farmers again. We use the word agri-businesses. We are transiting to a more serious note, a more serious narrative. All right. So one of the things that has happened in Cross River, I will use this and I will give you an analogy, and then I'll be a bit more specific about the name of the project so you can note it. One of the things that we have noticed in Cross River, and I'm using this as a business case so that it makes sense to you, is that over the years, If you check, you see that we have a mill, top feed. We have flour mills. Flour mills, what they do is that they use wheat to make a flour, okay? They mill it into flour. But I think since 2015 or 2013, they set up a second mill called Top Feed. So much of the livestock feed that we have in Cross River comes from there. The question is, the inputs that are required to produce animal feed are things like maize. You also have things like even the wheat offal. Then you have other necessary inputs that provide things like protein, like soybean and the rest. But the key input in livestock feed production is maize, because then the energy mix, the energy blend is what is most important. Now we have a big feed mill like flour mill, Top Feed, or call it Top Feed, or Premier Feed, sorry. We have a big feed mill here. It will interest you to note that not even up to one truck of maize comes from Cross River State, not one. All that happens is that maybe we may toll some of the maize that comes into the state. Where does this maize come from? It comes from Kaduna, it comes from Bauchi, it comes from Gombe, it comes from Plateau, it comes from all these places. Not one grain comes from here. Meanwhile, when you look at Cross River State, you look at the fact that we have 3 climatic conditions that can support the development of yellow maize. So one of the things we have done to sort that kind of gap is, one, to create a project called Project Grow. I will give you a bit of a background. We have done a needs assessment. It's so easy for me to sit here and play the blame game. Oh, we're not doing this, we're not giving the leverage to do this and that. But we sat down and looked at it. What has been the major hindrance to intensifying commercial agriculture in Cross River State? One of it is access to finance. Another one is access to markets. And so how can we bridge that gap? Where are we as a state in terms of our financial position? And so we came up with a program called Project Grow. Project Grow basically is a commercial agri credit guarantee fund scheme. So what we're saying is that government is willing to put down money on the ground as collateral to enable agri-businesses get money from our commercial banks. Don't forget, our governor, Senator Prince Bassey is a banker. So we believe that economic development is a circulatory function, and who holds the key to the circulatory function is the commercial banks. And so what is the thing that has hindered the commercial banks from lending to agribusiness over the years? It's because they don't really understand the agri ecosystem. Apart from that, the risk is enormous. So is there a possibility that if we de-risk it, they will be able to put money into the hands of our agribusinesses, particularly because, one, we have to supply about 125,000 metric tons of yellow maize to flour mill. We also have paddy, which is one of the value chains we are interested in, rice. We also have cassava. We also have what you call cattle fodder, silage, grass for livestock. And then we have fisheries. So I'm using flour mills, Premier Feeds as an analogy. How can everybody grow and supply that need from flour mill? Because that need is almost equivalent to about 60 billion. Can you imagine 60 billion roving around the economy of Cross River State in the hands of farmers? That is something you cannot imagine. I hope you can hear me. And so that's why we came up with that program. If I sit down to talk about that program, I will exhaust the whole time. But basically, the first thing we are doing is to be able to provide collateral for farmers to lend. And this collateral is cash-backed. So government is putting 30 billion over 6 years. The program is a 6-year project. It's a 6-year project, sorry, not a program, a 6-year project. So in 6 years, Cross River State government would have pulled out of the program or the project. By this time, we believe that the banks, the commercial banks, and all the value chain actors would have known how to manage themselves. There would have been adequate knowledge of how agriculture rolls, so that the banks, the commercial banks, can play a more prominent role in agricultural lending. What we would have achieved is to increase the amount of agricultural credit to our GDP, the state's GDP. That's what we intend to achieve in 6 years. So the value chains I told you are just 5 for now. That is because the model is centered around credit risk. So as we proceed, we will go into longer term crops. One of the things we have discovered in the preliminary report of the soil map that we are carrying out, I should have even talked about that first, is that we've discovered that we have close to 100,000 hectares of land for wheat cultivation. We can grow rain-fed wheat in Cross River State. So that's one of the programs that we're doing. But as an administration, we've decided to deal with agriculture fundamentally, and that's why we carried out the first ever, the last time we did a soil map, fertility mapping exercise was, I think, in 1985 or 86, if I'm not sure about that time, and it wasn't comprehensive. It didn't cover the entire state. But for the first time in this administration, we are conducting a soil and fertility mapping exercise for the entire state. The report's presentation should be done sometime within the month. And this information is going to be digitally driven. So anybody can access from anywhere in the world. You can access a digital platform and get information for a very insignificant fee. So you cannot plan without information. Without data, you cannot plan. So that is the basis of having the soil and fertility mapping exercise. And it's this administration that has done it. The other things that we are trying to do, because we may not be able to take on everything. So I told you that we have Project Grow to de-risk a couple of value chains that we see as priority. I talked about maize, I talked about rice, I talked about cassava, I talked about cattle silage, because we have the rainfall. We have the rainfall. We have to maximally utilize the rainfall that we have. The Southern Senatorial District accounts for about, I can say, 25% of the rainfall, even in Nigeria. We have so much rain, almost equivalent to what you have around the Bight of Bonny axis. So much rainfall. Now, and lastly, fisheries. Already we are almost a hub for aquaculture in the eastern part of Nigeria. We have fish hubs that are scattered across many parts of Cross River State. So the question is, the project will look at how to scale up what they are doing. Right now, the challenge for aquaculture development is in the cost of the feed. It's very expensive to feed the fish, very expensive. So the question is, we're looking at it two ways. If we're able to give top feed, maize, and they can reduce the cost of what they pay for transportation. If you're getting maize from Kaduna or so, it used to be about 900, 1.250, 1.1, but it's getting to 2 million. It's unsustainable. So if we can reduce that cost for them, because there's no way you will pay 2 million or $1 million naira from Ogoja or down to Calabar. It's impossible. So if we take off, we net off like $1 million naira for them, there's no way the cost of the feed won't come down. So generally, everything is integrated, okay? The next thing that we are doing is that we have 2 key cash crops in Cross River State that we all know about. I'm not saying we will not increase the number of cash crops that we will be involved in, but you have to leverage on what you have first. One is oil palm, and the next one is cocoa. So what we are trying to do now is to have clarity. We want to provide clarity by providing the cassava, what do you call it, the cocoa and oil palm value chain policy. In short, minus the policy, what we are doing is developing a 7-year strategic plan for cocoa and oil palm development. Embedded for cocoa, example for cocoa, embedded in that strategic plan would be the cocoa value chain policy that gives clarity on every aspect of cocoa, including the marketing. It gives clarity to everybody. It creates room and gives the institutional framework for public-private partnerships. Because all of these things is not as if government has the money. So government is just going to give clarity. So an investor is somewhere in Bangladesh, somewhere in the UK. If you can gain access to the integrated plan and our policy, you can see what is required, what could possibly be the limitations, what could be what. Everything is answered within the framework of people. What is the framework for entry? How can I come in and invest in cocoa? Which aspect of the value chain am I coming in? There is clarity from the state. Are there fees that I need to pay? Are there land entitlements that I need? Everything will be made clear so that what is the framework for PPPs with government? You would see it in the policy. So these are the kind of things that we're doing. The same thing in oil with oil palm. It's a 7-year integrated plan. So that one, is there a possibility that we can protect indigenous investors? Because it's a very bullish sector. How do we protect indigenous investors? All of those things, the policy will guide. So those are the kind of things we are doing. Also embedded in the cocoa policy is the plan to establish 6 new estates. You know, right now we have cocoa estates in 4 places in Etim. Part of Ecom is, you also have Ecom to donated land. We have cocoa estates at Bonita, we have Cross River Cocoa, and we have about 2 other cocoa estates. So what we want to do now is that we want to spread it. The idea behind spreading it, and if you check, we have Executive Council approval for cocoa estates in Akpabio, Akampa, Odukpani, Ububra, Bekwara, and Ecom local government. And if you ask, why are we doing this? The truth is that it seems like cocoa is a purely central affair. It's an Ecom affair. So what we're trying to do is to decentralize the development of cocoa. So by the time we take the estate to a place like, let me say, Odukpani, I mean, the highest that we can do there is probably about 2,000, 3,000 hectares for the estate. But what we would have done is to stimulate the interest of the indigenous people around there to go into cocoa cultivation. In that way, we are reducing poverty. As of today, a bag of cocoa is going for, a bag of cocoa is about 62 kg. It's going for about 350,000, slightly over 350,000. That is putting money in people's hands. Do you understand? So those are the kind of things that we are doing. We also have, can I go on? Because we have so many things.
I would have loved you to go on because, I mean, what you're saying is really interesting, but I would like to move to another speaker quickly, then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? All right. So based on what Mr. Johnson has said, I'm coming over to you, Mr. Muyi Ladoja. I would like to hear from you. Can you share insights into the success and the challenges of running an oil plantation company in Cross River State? And when you were done talking about that, we'd like to hear what the potentials are based on what Mr. Johnson Ebokpo has just said. Mr. Muyi, over to you, please.
I can hear you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Oil palm in Cross River State, fairly straightforward, very money consuming. I will follow up with some of the things that the Honorable Commissioner said to start with. You know, you do your soil mapping, you figure out your land, you put your team together, you clear your land, you know, you start your stuff. Now, I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff because this is not kindergarten. So we'll all assume that oil palm is a positive crop for Cross River State, which means that Cross River State area, based on its soil, based on its rainfall, is good for oil palm. So we can assume that. Now, the primary issue of oil palm is one, scale, because it's very difficult for small scale farmers to develop plantations. Actually, to be fair, I don't know of any new small plantation that has come up in the past 20 years. I don't know of any. The only ones that are coming up are the big guys. That's probably because the barriers to entry of oil palm is very high. You will be looking at about 2 to 4 million naira per hectare to develop it over a 5-year period before it starts fruiting. So unless you have enough money or enough other products to keep you going in those 4 or 5 years, you pretty much cannot do anything. And it's very, very tough. Or should I say, it's probably not even economically wise to borrow money to do oil palm right now, because you probably will not be able to pay back based on the interest that the banks are charging. Even at 10%, you can't do it, because you still don't break even. You will need funds of probably less than 3% per annum to be able to do oil palm, regardless of what anybody says. This is from experience. So the small holders, and I think this kind of goes for cocoa as well. It will be very tough for the smallholders to borrow to do cash crops. You normally do that from initial funds, and then as you grow, you might not borrow to add value. So you want to have a mill, you want to do your crushing. So in the North case, yes, Cross River State, Southern Senatorial District mostly, great for oil palm, yes. Probably one of the best areas in the country for that. But is it feasible with borrowed funds? No. Do we need to do something about that? Well, it's this conversation which I think myself and the Honorable Commissioner have had, and it's still inexhaustive right now in terms of how we can move that forward. Because the thinking right now, especially with the new project of, I think, is it 5 million seedlings that we want to do in the state? Honorable Commissioner, is it 5 million seedlings that we're trying to do?
No, 3.5 million tenera seedlings.
Okay, 3.5 million tenera seedlings. I mean, great, very, very laudable, but the cost of maintaining those seedlings and the cost of what those farmers will do while they're raising those seedlings is a subject which I'm sure that the government would be able to enlighten us on how we're going to go forward. I'm going to stop there and take questions if there are any for now.
Yeah, okay. What the second question I had asked was, what potentials do you see for the growth of oil plantation business in the States, and what are the key factors influencing this growth?
Okay, I sort of answered that at the beginning, actually. To do oil palm, you look at the area, the soil is good, the rainfall is good. Those are the 2 primary things that you need for oil palm. It's probably the best in the country. Then, of course, finance.
Okay, but of course, rain is a natural resource, so that's not in our control. Okay, before we go over to the next speaker, we had a comment here in the chat box from Niger Delta Integrated Farmers Pidan, and he said, for Cross River State to make any headway in commercial agriculture scale-up, land development must be put into policy. Government must intentionally target annually to develop land and allocate same to various value chain clusters to activate. Yeah. So that's a comment from Niger Delta Integrated Farmers. I'd also like to mention that we are live on Facebook and on YouTube. If you have any comments, if you're listening from our social media platforms, please feel free to drop comments, and we're going to ensure that they are read here. And if you have any questions towards the tail end of this event, you'd be given an opportunity to ask. Basically, all you need to do is to raise your hand using the raise hand button on your Zoom interface. And then we are live on Sparkling 92.3 FM. If you're listening from there, all you need to do, if you have a question or a comment, please feel free to send text messages or WhatsApp chats only to 0806 756 6448. All right. I would like to move over to just a minute. Okay, Miss Barrister Etim-Inyang. Yes. I have to ensure that I'm correct at that. Could you please provide an overview for the current status of farming industry in Cross River State?
Thank you very much, and greetings to everybody in this Zoom conference. First, let me begin by expressing my deep gratitude and appreciation, and because what I heard coming from government, as represented by the Commissioner for Agri, is quite heartening. But without meaning to take too much time, it's important to understand that policy and regulation are the biggest influence on any value chain. And, for value chain development to actually be thoroughly optimized, it's important that the policy framework, the regulatory framework is understood by all stakeholders, small or large. That said, aquaculture, which is a subset of the of fisheries, is, as you know, not where it should be. For me, without a doubt, Cross River State, and I suspect it will be, Cross River State should be at the forefront of the blue revolution in Nigeria. We don't just have the geography to scale this dream. We also, from what I hear, have the capacity to channel the right kind of resources towards developing aquaculture to a scale where it's not only subsistent but commercial. Now, subsistent aquaculture in and of itself is not a bad thing. I know that Cross River State also has in mind the homestead project that will capture the subsistent nature of aquaculture. But beyond that, we want to look at commercializing aquaculture. Nigeria today has about a demand for 3 million metric tons of fisheries and fisheries products. And it produces barely 800,000 to 1 million metric tons. So what am I saying? 2 million metric tons are imported into Nigeria every year. And so that essentially shows you the scale of what should happen locally and how we should begin to catalyze that effort. Fisheries in Cross River State, again, isn't where it ought to be. What are the main challenges I see? The main challenges, of course, I see are the challenges related to the not thoroughly undeveloped nature of the value chain, finance, access to credit, inputs, feed, which the Honorable Commissioner pointed to, as you know, makes up about 60% of inputs. But another input we don't really drive our attention to is seed, which is the fingerlings. There's a direct correlation between the quality of fingerlings that you put in your pond with the kind of yield you should be having. Now, what we seem to be having is farmers who don't really have the capacity to produce or have hatcheries that should give them the kind of yields and produce quality fingerlings that should give them the yields that they should be getting, engaging in operating hatcheries. I think that hatchery production is a totally different specialist skill and enterprise altogether. And we should be thinking along the lines of having 1 or 2 big hatcheries, industrial hatcheries in Cross River State that will provide the fingerlings for the kind of yields we should be seeing in Cross River State. Now, in terms of subsidies, where government should come in, I am a big believer in subsidizing production. And now if you subsidize production to the extent of feed, subsidize production to the extent of seed, you'll begin to see a lot more of the sector being catalyzed. You'll begin to see a lot more players going in. You'll begin to see even the subsistence farmer making more money, putting more money in his pocket and having extras, you know, to take care of his family, send his kids to school. So to that extent, aquaculture, value chain in agriculture is slightly underdeveloped. And I'm sure that going forward, we'll begin to have more discussions around these areas so we can catalyze that sector. Thank you. You're muted.
Sorry about that, please. Okay, I was saying that I would still like to stay with you.
Yes.
How can local communities and aspiring fish farmers engage with established businesses to foster collaboration and knowledge exchange when it comes to your industry?
Well, I mean, this again is an issue of value chain dynamics. If the value chain is well developed, you'll see a seamless synergy between what government is offering in terms of extension services, what government is offering in terms of subsidies to farmers for the seed and the feed. You'll see a lot more collaboration between government, research and development institutions, and how that affects the fish farmer. Okay, and those are critical sectors that need to be addressed within that value chain, and such that the farmer focuses on farming, good fish health, production, and he leaves the other parts of the value chain like processing, marketing, distribution, to other skilled players within the sector. So yes, there should be a lot more synergy between government, between institutions, and extension services, so that the farmer simply focuses more on that. But also it's critical to understand that in fish farming, for instance, it is usually better to operate within clusters. It is always better to operate within clusters, because what it means is that the clusters may be in the form of organizations are better able to access these resources. I mean, when you're dealing individually, it spreads the resource being provided very thinly, and you may not have the capacities to really engage with individual farmers. But when you're dealing with organizations, fish farming enterprises, you know that you're dealing directly with the enterprises. The enterprises are dealing with extension services. Enterprises are dealing with universities. Enterprises are dealing with government. Enterprises are dealing with off-takers. It is usually better when you operate within clusters. So again, boils down to value chain development.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for that. I'll come over to Dr. Effa after Dr. Effa, sorry, after which I'll take some comments from the comment section, which is really, we have some brilliant comments and questions there as well. So over to you, Dr. Effa. From an academic perspective, what trends and innovations do you observe in the field of crop science, particularly in Cross River State?
So good afternoon. Please, I heard innovation. What was the first thing?
Oh, what I said was that what trends and innovations, the trends and innovations do you observe in the field of crop science, particularly in Cross River State?
Well, I would say that the state government is doing well with the policy articulation and what it intends to achieve. Good ideas. But as far as using our local resources are concerned, there are very big gaps. We have not been able to muster the local knowledge, available resources within the state. We still look out for bringing in, use the word, maybe exotics, hybrids, etc. So it's that we are trying to scale up agriculture, but see, until we get the seed factor right, our farming will still be expensive. Okay, let me digress a little bit. Look at vegetable production right now. We have to source for seeds from as far as importing. One of the most popular seed vendors, as we speak, has had pressure supplying cucumber seeds for farmers locally. But I know that we have research institutes, we have UNICA, we have CRUTEC, who could have gone into synergy with the state to breed and produce seeds that could have helped the drive to expand agriculture. So from that aspect of research, I think, and I am advocating also that there has to be an emphasis on developing, I could use the word indigenous seeds right from cross-river state. That would mean that we will have an all year round supply at a very affordable cost. We can do more, we will do more, but the enabling environment, part of it is a seed factor. If we catch up with the seed factor and we're able to master it, many more years to come, this story will be so wonderful to tell. Just that.
Okay, thank you. So you talked about research. So in terms of research, what research initiatives or projects is the university or is the Department of Crop Science currently undertaking that can impact, agriculture in Cross River State? So it could be University of UNICAL itself or CRUTEC, former CRUTEC, can't remember the new name. Yeah. But yeah, so research initiatives or projects are currently ongoing.
Okay, let me talk about UNICA, where I am specifically. In our department, we have plant breeders who are trying their best at their own, I use the word individual level, to produce, to breed, to raise indigenous seedlings for our farmers. But their efforts, it takes a long time to get to the level where you saturate the market with your product. So their efforts are still at the level where much help is needed. But are we working? Yes. Do we have the facilities? I can say no. Why? Because we need more assistance in that area. I looked through the federal government budget for agriculture, and I found that about 18-point-something billion naira was budgeted for agricultural research. And that's a far cry from what is needed as far as food sufficiency and security is concerned. We can talk about it over and over again, but we need to support our local researchers to scale up their activities so that we can have an overflow in the area of seed production. Because every other factor, as far as I am concerned, to a very large extent, is available, as we have heard. But the aspect of seeds still remains very, very primordial.
Okay, I think that's brilliant. I'll take a few comments from the chat box and then come back to the Honorable Commissioner. So ID Uko has asked, "Dear Honorable Commissioner, What is the framework for continuity of these policies, considering the government's inconsistencies between several administrations, which with each administration bringing new programs and abandoning previous government policies? Let me just take the next one, so probably you can do everything together. Chris Tabendobisi says, land development, preparation, and allocation policy must be intentionally clear and well understood by stakeholders, e.g. commercial banks and all. A young here says, my name is Ovat Osim. I really appreciate the key steps Honorable Commissioner said about agribusiness. I would sincerely appreciate if livestock farming is taken seriously. This will totally reduce the cost of feeding in Cross River State and will allow the GDP of Cross River State to grow. Then he says again, my question is how local farmers can access agro loans. So there are two questions here. Maybe I should just go over it again so you can run with it, sir. The first is, Honorable Commissioner, what is the framework for continuity of this?
I've gotten the question.
Yeah, okay.
I've gotten the question, sir.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. If you recall, the mantra this administration is the people's first. So the bulk of the activities, so the people's first is divided in two parts. The first is the fact that you may have heard the governor say things like, we will reduce or try to eliminate fiscal wastage and subsidize various forms of productivity. Because all that we are interested in is productivity. Today, Nigeria is facing a major currency challenge. And I mean, monetary policy is trying to fix it. Unfortunately, while I agree that the markets do a lot, the challenges are systemic. So we still have to come back to productivity. We have to produce. So Muyi talked about the 3.5 million tenera seedlings. So the entry, there are tons of barriers, especially the capital requirements to go into things like oil palm. So what government is trying to do is, you know what, we have a couple of smallholder farmers. It's very difficult to buy seedlings. Can we develop same and sell to them at a subsidized rate? That's a form of subsidy. It's the same thing we are doing with Project Grow. How can we get funds to farmers? So we created Project Grow to facilitate all the linkages within each of these value chains that the 5 value chains I talked about, okay? Now, the other part of the people's first mantra simply says that government will not plan without the people. And so usually when we are developing policy, we do a stakeholder mapping and bring those that represent the people. We bring them to the table, those we perceive, as well as the commodity groups in that value chain, the private sector players in that value chain. In terms of sustainability of some of the frameworks we have developed, anything you do without the private sector may not necessarily be sustained. And so what you want to do is to have the framework for the partnership and then provide institutional support. Institutional support may come by way of creating agencies, may come by way of creating new laws, whatever you want to call it. But that is how we intend to sustain it. So all that we are going to be doing going forward as we develop these frameworks is to work with the private sector, okay? They are actually government is the engine of development. The private sector, they are the drivers of growth. They move, they do the business, they exchange the money. What we do in government, we don't make profit, we serve. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. All right. I have also taken note of some of what the speakers have said, especially around seed development. You see, the markets will determine a lot. When there is nothing happening upstream, downstream suffers. But when there's a lot happening upstream, naturally downstream would always try to fulfill the need upstream. I give you an example. You will not put a barge or a tugboat to carry pipes if there was no oil buyer. I mean the oil importer. You need to have the oil importer. And because you have an oil importer, you have an oil exploration company, you have the guys who do the metal steel fabrication, you have everybody downstream. So downstream naturally works in order to serve upstream, because at the end of the day, what we're all pursuing is the money that the importer is allocating for the exercise, the activity. So this is what has not happened. Until we are able to link markets, sometimes it may affect research down the value chain. I completely agree with the doctor from crop science, the crop scientist, that yes, seed development is a problem. Seed development in itself is a challenge. But I give you an example. Now we're talking about paddy development. Part of the plan is to produce paddy for milling and also to produce paddy as a planting material. As a planting material. In that case, there will be need to link the value chain actors. So from research, from all of these people, everybody will come to the allocated land that we want to use as a seed garden. There are going to be other parties, usually a private sector investor. So a lot of times where we get it wrong is where we see agriculture as some kind of interventionist activity, some kind of small activity. There is no difference between agriculture and the oil and gas industry. There always has to be a market that links everybody. I don't know whether I'm making sense. So currently there are plans to go into seed development. Usually in breeding seeds, there are some challenges. So it would depend on the type of seeds. We will look at seeds that are generally certified and propagate them, because the process of breeding seeds is not easy. Getting approvals from the seed council and all of those things takes a while, okay, to breed indigenous seeds, to you know, whether they are transgenic seeds or whatever you want to call them, okay? So we have that plan. Even if we are going to have to develop maize, yellow maize, we will have to have seed gardens. We'll have to have seed gardens. And then we also, that's why the ministry is called Ministry of Agriculture and Irrigation Development, because I'm talking about producing all year round. So one of the things we are doing is the statewide irrigation development program. So we will do the engineering, study and design and know the nature of irrigation that is needed in various places. And then we probably award contracts to go and, you know, actually institute these various irrigation arrangements across various parts of Cross River State. So there are a couple of other things that I noted here. Mr. Etim talked about the involvement in the hatchery aspect of the aquaculture value chain with some of our partners, Effa and the USAID. I'm pleased to announce that we are actually developing a hatchery. There's a hatchery at the ADP office. So hopefully that will be sorted out, but then you need more and more and more hatcheries. Most importantly for aquaculture is still the market. You can you know, develop fingerlings or juveniles, but you still have a challenge with the market. So, and he talked about clusters, fair and good. I'm happy that that's what we have. Even before we came on board, that's what we have. But then there's a need to link the markets, especially for processing, not just selling raw fish or dried fish or whatever, we process, and also fish for exports. So we're looking at all of these things and looking at how to you know, have the best quality narrative that will make people interested, bring in other value chain actors at that level. That now makes it a seamless one and everybody benefits. But by and large, I think that we are making progress. Like I said, policy has to meet the marketplace. When policy hits the marketplace, you will see activities. So one of it is what we're doing with Project Grow. He talked about the homestead agricultural program, where we're saying that, you know what, you can actually grow food in your backyard. It's part of our food security initiative. You can grow something in your backyard. So we'll be doing that advocacy as well. Don't know if there's any more thing that I need. There's so much in agriculture. It's such a vast area, and I don't know, if you ask me more specific questions, I will. So I'm just trying to touch on a few things, trying to answer questions and let everybody know that this time around, this government is very serious. We're looking at agriculture pragmatically. We're asking ourselves, what works? We're not interested in the theoretical aspect of things. What works? That's all we're interested in. If it doesn't work, if it sounds good, but will not work in the mid-term or short-term, and if we think that it will cause issues for us in the long term, we'll dump it. So that's why we're saying that we want to talk to stakeholders. We want to engage with stakeholders. In a few days from now, some of our directors will be meeting directly with stakeholders in the various value chains. Succeeded in reorganizing the ministry. They will meet with you. They will develop their strategic plan with you. Nobody's going to just sit down and develop a plan again. We will work with the stakeholders in the value chain. So all your concerns around land development and all of that will be catered for. But most importantly, for Project Grow, embedded in the project is the plan for land development. It's in the economics of production. So you have business concerns that actually have this equipment. So once the ecosystem is incentivized, you will see these people come and clear land. But we have a particular arrangement with Brains and Hammers to clear 60,000 hectares of land for us over the next 6 years. We also have the Nigerian Agricultural Mechanization and Equipment Leasing Company. I think they are in tomorrow. They also will be involved in clearing, developing land for us, because it's quite expensive to do primary development, pulling down trees and all that. So they will be here tomorrow. We start the engagement. So the question is, what is in it for everybody? There has to be something in it for NAMEL. And so we are working all of that out. We are identifying our land banks. There have been issues with community engagements, compensation, all of those things. As I speak to you, committees are currently working, trying to, first of all, re-identify the land banks, re-establish the land banks so that we can allocate same to farmers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner. You've actually touched on a number of areas, and I've seen that Mr. Muyi Ladoja's hand has been up, and I'm actually going to come back to you. So I'll let you make your comment, and then I have a question for you.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask the Honorable Commissioner to pick Project Grow for an example. Okay, which I think is a very laudable project if it's done properly. You know, you've spoken to us about it strategically. So can you tell us how it's supposed to run from beginning to end? You know, how does the players get involved? You know, how does it all work?
Are you sure we'll leave this place if I take it end to end?
Oh no. Honorable Commissioner, I'm sure you can just give us, you know, basically from, you've signed the agreement with the off-taker, they've raised funds, so, you know, blah, 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 how to now get to
basically, so basically, Project Growth, he has just said, you sign an agreement, the project signs an agreement with the off-taker. The project is a portal. The project now requests, it makes it live.
Okay, those are the kind of things I'm asking for. The portal, how do people get onto the portal? You know,
okay, so the portal will be made, the launch of this project was supposed to be officially done in March, but it has been shifted because of some bureaucratic bottlenecks. We've had to shift it to April. However, work starts, and so that in April we can be reporting some of the activities. So
okay, because in April we're deep into the planting season.
Yes. So that's why we can't do anything in March. And so we'll just do something that is official, just to report how far we have gone. So the portal is going to be made available to everybody within the month. You will see it on billboards, you see it everywhere, so you can actually go onto the portal to register. So you register as an agribusiness, in the marketplace, you can register as an aggregator, you can register as the bank. We have different banks. You can register as whatever you are. You understand, as a farmer, there's a space for everybody. The team, there's a project team for Project Grow. But basically how it works is that you have the instrument, which is the offtake agreement. From the offtake agreement, Project Grow begins to facilitate all the actors that will provide what the off-taker needs, let's say maize. And so they will need to organize farmers, they will need to organize the agribusiness players, the input providers, the financial institutions. All of these people, we aggregate them together through the portal. But the portal works in two ways. One, there's a credit risk part of the project, which seeks to validate wherever you are and verify that whoever is coming in through the space is probably credit worthy. It will check your credit status. It will check that you are in line with regulatory requirements. Let's say you're coming in as an agribusiness player. Do you have a CAC documentation? Do you have those type of things? That's one aspect. It will verify you. It will look at your business as a whole. Are you actually credit worthy? What is your asset cover? Those type of things. And when it does that, it will pass you on to what we call your own lending bank. The process will be made clear to you when you're trying to do the application, okay? It will pass you to your own bank. Wherever, if your bank is one of the lending banks, you go on, it goes to your bank. Project Grow does not lend money directly. What it does is to help the bank with basic credit information so that the bank can kickstart its own credit administration process. Everything about the business is clear. It goes to the bank's API. There's an API that integrates the portal in Project Grow and the bank's software or whatever. When it gets there, the bank will appraise you and extend credit to you. But it will require a collateral. And that collateral will have to come from a custodian bank. The custodian bank in this case is Zenith Bank. Zenith Bank is providing the custodian support for us. So Zenith Bank will raise what we call is a cashback bank guarantee in order for your bank to give you money. But the bank would not necessarily, the guarantee may not cover the entire scope of the loan. I mean, you have to put your skin in the game. So it's a possibility.
Sorry, just to help you a little bit, I'll be helping you along as we go along. I'm assuming that the custodian bank is the one that is holding the funds that the government has.
Yeah, the funds that the government is, that's what the custodian bank, you have two banks. You have the custodian bank, you have the lending banks. So the custodian bank in this case is Zenith Bank. So Zenith Bank will review the request from the lending bank for collateral support and provide same. Okay, usually the obligor, which is the borrower, will have an equity to put down. The guarantee will cover the remaining portion, and there will be a counter guarantee from what we call NISA. NISA would also provide some aspect of the cover so that the money can, reach many more people. So that's it. Now, before this advance is made to you, that is where.
Sorry. Before we pass this stage, I will continue asking questions as you're going on. We're talking about the cost of money. What kind of cost of money are we looking at? What kind of term are we looking at?
Oh, well, basically, like I said, the first thing is the value chain analysis that has been done, that we have right now. And so from the value chain analysis, we've been able to establish the economics of production for each of these value chains, okay? So before the lending is done, these documents will be presented to the bank. These monies are held in your account and placed on hold. So the way it works is that the bulk of all the other actors that are linked for this activity to take place will be notified. Those that are providing mechanization, those that are going to be providing the input, those that will be providing the extension service, because what we're doing is we're generating what you call village level advisors. We don't have enough extension agents in the ministry or in ADP. So right now we're in the field, we're training.
Commissioner, you're running away from my question. Cost of money, term of the money, please.
No, I will respond. I will respond to you.
Okay.
I will respond to you. Now, the cost of the money reflects the reflection of your current CBN monetary rates. I just want you to know that. However, because it is agribusiness based, we are still in discussions so that we can hit, even if we don't hit single digits, we can end at 10%. Discussions are ongoing with the lending banks. We have asked the lending banks to provide specific product papers, because if we are giving you a cashback guarantee, we have mitigated the bulk of the risk. So why would you be charging 24%? Do you understand? So we're looking at that.
It's your money.
So it's our money. So it's ongoing. That's why I don't want to speak too much to it. In a few days, this information will be out and everybody will have it. And so when it moves, it goes before this money is disbursed to you or it's in your account. The method of disbursement will be as recommended by the project, because the project is the one that facilitates the linkages. I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. This is at the grower level. Same thing happens to an aggregator. It's a very simple process. The idea behind having Project Grow is an acknowledgement of the fact that we know that Nigerian banks are, because of the economy, Nigerian banks are understaffed. You don't have that much of a strength around the agricultural desk. So how do you use extension to mitigate against loss? We don't want the money in the bank to be crystallized by default. So we use agri extension to follow up from the farm gate to the point of the aggregator. So we have those kind of people that have been trained. There are devices that they use to monitor and report at the same time. So that is, in a snapshot, that is how the project works. At the end game is that in the value chain, you have those who are involved in logistics. You have all these kind of different people. They come in through your aggregator of take and supply. The Project Grow does not supply to the off-taker. Project Grow will transfer a portion of the PO to the agribusiness, the major agribusiness player. You understand? The agribusiness player will go and get his payment. However, there may be fees. If government is facilitating this kind of thing for you, definitely some fees will be generated upfront for government. I don't know, government is helping you make money, it will generate some fees. I think we are being a bit too technical. And some people here who...
I was going to come in, the Honorable Commissioner. Thank you so much. And Mr. Muyi, Ladoja, you've asked, the question is actually very, it's
not for, yes, it's a technical session, not for basic discussion.
I was wondering if there's an avenue or a way that people can have access to this information once it is published or ready for public view. So
it will be in various media channels,
I think, Mr. David Etim, the chairman of Calabar Chamber of Commerce, has got his hand up. We should attend to him.
Yes,
so
his hand has been up for a while, but I'm conscious of time and I'm actually going to take everybody's questions and contributions. But I'd like to ask these two questions to Barrister Inyang, and then I'll come over to Dr. Effa, and then I'll take Mr. David Etim. I hope that's fine. So while Mr. David's hand is up, I'd like to come to Barrister Etim-Inyang with one question. That question would be, how do legal considerations impact entrepreneurship in the agribusiness sector? And what advice do you have for aspiring agribusiness entrepreneurs or agripreneurs?
Well, first advice is never proceed without a lawyer. The second advice is, if you're proceeding with a lawyer, he will ensure that the contract is the basis of any relationship you have with anyone. And it is important that if you are engaging in any kind of relationship, it's important that you have some form of documentation by way of a contract or an agreement reflecting what the obligations of each party would be. So to that extent, I would advise every new agripreneur coming in always engage the services of a lawyer, always before moving forward. And of course, I mean, the first documentation, of course, would be trying to getting him to get your incorporation documents in order, ensuring that you are set up for the payment of taxation. Because at the end of the day, everything government is doing in terms of its policy framework, is to ensure that more people are captured in the tax net. The services government is providing, the support government is providing is such that they are able to identify taxpayers, individual or corporate. Government does not generate revenue through any other means than by taxation. And the more government begins to encapsulate its relationship with stakeholders, be they small or large, the more they can better identify potential tax base. So that's critical going forward for government. But I wanted to point out something following through with what the commissioner had said. You know, Commissioner, I'm sure you know this, you're very much aware of this, that the vast majority of agripreneurs and of people operating in the sector, various sectors of agriculture, they're mostly either small or medium scale. It is important that going forward, the policies and the benefits that the entrepreneurs will derive, and some farmers are just pure illiterates. So how do you even begin to sell these ideas to them in such a way that they understand and they can access it and that they can take advantage? One way, of course, would be to suggest that farming communes are organized by way of cooperatives. The cooperative posture is a no-brainer. It is a way that, you know, policies and benefits can filter down, okay, to a vast majority of operators. It is also a means by which government will also advocate what its policies are and how people can benefit from those policies. So going forward, advocacy is key, and making cooperatives and potential beneficiaries understand. Because I noticed you point to the fact that this was very, very technical information. Yourself and Muyi were actually going down that line. It was extremely technical. So the average fish farmer, the average crop farmer may have no clue of what you are talking about and may not be able to access these benefits unless of course we can tailor them to the respective cooperatives and make sure that they understand and benefit from those support systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Inyang. Of course, the first thing is to have a legal advisor. Okay, I'd like to go back to Dr. Effa before I come to Mr. David Etim-Inyang. Has been up. So sorry for keeping you waiting. Dr. Effa, in your opinion, what skills and knowledge are crucial for the next generation of agricultural professionals, and how can this be fostered in educational institutions? And I also like to add that how can the generational gap be bridged between the old generation and the younger generation farmers too? Yeah.
All right. When I'm done, maybe let me just ask this upfront before I answer the question. Honorable Commissioner talked about soil mapping exercise for Cross River State. I don't know if it's completed or it's still in process, but I would love to ask him, maybe when I'm done directly, how much of local content do we draw from, I talked about the University Faculty of Agriculture, UNICAL, and then Cross River University. how much of content we draw from those faculties to be part of the team that did assessment, perhaps. All right. So skills and knowledge. There were two questions: skills and knowledge. The second one was what? How do we bridge the gap between the old generation?
Yeah.
It's a concern, truly. I was pondering this morning. I did I looked at the aspect of aging a few years ago, and I was wondering, as the farmers age and retire from active farming, we find that the young ones have kind of moved away from agriculture and looking maybe for school, local to city migration, etc., etc., etc. You find that the core producers, that sustainable party, subsistence party of farmers, has dwindled over time. And it's because the tedium, the stress involved in agriculture is one of the reasons why the young people are shying away and running away from farming. Now, if we must have young people venture back, we must make agriculture as attractive as we can make it attractive. One of the ways we can do this, we must begin to X-ray, put more light on the value of farming. Now, let me say this. You watch Big Brother, perhaps, and those who watch it. You will see a collection of people come together for a live show, maybe 2 weeks or a month, perhaps. I don't know how long it lasts. And then somebody goes home with a bumper award. So why can't we have a reality show where we have a farm situation and we bring together a compendium of youths and have them also engage and exercise on agriculture, and someone goes home with an SUV, or someone goes home with something that would make every other person wish, I wish I was there. You see, it's the value society places on agriculture ab initio that makes the youth move away. There is so much of lip service. We are trying to do this scale up, yes. But from the very basic perspective, we must increase the attraction in agriculture to make sure that our young people find, again, apart from the need to eat. I mean, somebody would say, so why must I farm if I can buy food? It's not just about buying food, but if everybody can produce something, there will be more sustainability, there will be more availability, and enough food to go around. So what skills and knowledge do we need? So apart from the basic fundamental, I think that agriculture has evolved over the years, and it will keep evolving. So young people have to first learn the basics of farming. And after that, we can now begin to see how to integrate advances in agriculture. Artificial intelligence is working in so many countries. People are doing stuff with agriculture using AI. But let's not be in a hurry also, like I would say, to go to AI when we've not mastered the basics of technology. What am I saying here? I went to Bassey to observe a farm that was about some few years ago. And when I traveled inside, my friend said, "Doc, when you get to that place, you'll be out of Nigeria, you are in Cameroon." And after a few minutes, I heard, "Welcome to MTN." MTN Cameroon sent me a welcome notice. So I was out of Nigeria MTN. I was inside Cameroon MTN. If we cannot manage the basic thing like telecoms, you see, we are a little far from introducing much higher technology. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but let's master the basics. Let's keep growing and let's increase. I'm thinking there must be a technical background. There must be technical background. You can't just do, and we are moving away actually, like I could use our Faculty of Agriculture as a baseline to my conclusions, moving away from that theoretical thing, and we are making sure that our students have hands-on trainings, how agriculture works, so that if you engage, even if it's a second, third, fourth, he or she would know how to make things work within a farm setting. So it's a lot, but we are growing, and we are sure that as we keep on investing in them, they will master the techniques to make agriculture a worthwhile investment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that's well said. We'll move over to you, Mr. David Etim. Your hand has been up for a while. Please, can you unmute yourself and make your comment to ask your question?
Okay. Hello, yes. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is David Etim. I'm the president of the Calabar Chamber of Commerce and the chairperson of the Organized Private Sector Forum of Cross River State. I have totally enjoyed today. Totally enjoyed. When you have round pegs and round holes, it just makes everything a lot easier. Honorable Commissioner, I want to commend you for your capacity and also commend the government for identifying you. That said, while I have no issues with subsistence farming and cluster farming and all that, if we are going to move towards food security, industrial scale farming must be the objective. Now, that said, people like Effa, USAID, government itself only provide catalytic funding, funding that only triggers the whole thing to get moving. The real money that is going to drive our food security is going to be private sector money. Any government anywhere in the world does not have enough money to actually drive agriculture. Mr. Muyi Ladoja laid a very fantastic foundation when he talked about cost of money and placed it at about 3%, which is very true. Now, from what the Honorable Commissioner has said, the best that government will do is 10%. So we still have a huge capital exposure for primary production. This 10% may work in value addition, but in primary production, we still have a huge challenge. So this is something that is for another day. Now, on the issue of, I really like the Honorable Commissioner's plans and the fact that he's starting out from data acquisition. That is just so sweet to hear. And I pray that, things run as he has planned them. As he's also said, which is clear, 7-year plan. If everything goes well, by the time this plan is fully blown, they will have only 1 more year to go. So I want to honestly appeal, not well appeal, but to bring to government's attention, critical attention, the need to transmute this plan, this agricultural plan, from a government policy to being a private sector driven agenda. So that when the private sector is driving, private sector doesn't have tenure. The best that will happen to this administration is 8 years. After 8 years, it must go. Okay, but if you transmute your plans into the private sector, and the private sector own it and then begin to drive it, which he has said that we affirm that, then the private sector can take it to the bridge, as the Americans would say. Okay, we can take it to the full actualization and sustainability. Now, government has identified that, and I really commend that also. Now, in terms of funding, I want to say here, Africa is the last frontier. Today, China has been growing. China is now having the headroom for growth in China is now becoming limited. The only place in the world that has very significant headroom for growth is in Africa. Waiting to come to Africa I am very happy that the Honorable Commissioner is on board as regards understanding the kind of policies required. I pray that he gets all the support he needs from his colleagues in government to be able to implement those policies to the letter. But it is something that, you know, has been a challenge. And to a great extent, the connect between the state and the federal needs to be seamless. So that, because there are certain components of this that, you know, cut across. Now to the academia, the doctor from UNICA, I want to say that the academia has been a big disappointment to industry. Big disappointment to industry because the academia has not pulled its weight. Now, the academia, when I heard him talking about government funding research, there's more money for research in private sector than there is in government. But academia in Nigeria today, as presently constituted, cannot access that money because the academia is not designed as of today to show deliverables. They want free money that they can sit on and do as they like. Private sector, your money is not for free, it's not free money. So you need KPIs for every kobo that the private sector puts into research and development. The private sector is going outside of Nigeria to go and invest in research that they bring back to Nigeria because our own academia is not up and doing. The academia, when asking the Honorable Commissioner whether they are part of the data acquisition for soil tests, personally, I'm not surprised if they are not. Because if you want delivery right now, you can't turn to our academia. Unfortunately, but let the truth be told. So I want to challenge the academia to step up their game, to be far more serious, far more focused, far more result-oriented, far more willing to work with key performance indices that show step by step. I don't want to go into my personal experiences with academia, UNICA to be specific, in agricultural research. So, but let's leave that. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. Honorable Commissioner, I want to commend your efforts. I want to assure you that the organized private sector of Cross River State, for which I can speak authoritatively, stands ready, willing, and able to stand with you, to work with you, to hold hands with you, to deliver on your vision.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Can I say a thing, please? Yeah, while you may have had, like you say,
thank you.
Am I here? Am I audible, please? Maybe one experience is not,
Effa.
yes, it is not enough to vilify academia in Nigeria, please. Because if you have looked away for so long, you may not know what has happened, what is happening, and what is in the pipeline. Yeah, maybe you had a bad run, perhaps, as you would say, but that is not to say that everybody is in one hole on the same mood. So maybe you need to find out what went wrong, and then you could reach out to find other reliable sources. It cuts across. If you had a bad run with somebody in academia, you could have them in any sector. They're everywhere. And for you to say that they are not, you will not be surprised why agri faculty was not maybe carried along. It's part of the same problem that we have, because you see, there's so much of outsourcing for contractors to do what we should do, what we could do locally. So if there has been a bad experience, it doesn't mean that you throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say. There is hard work going. And as it is, every man knows what is worth, and we are working towards producing results for industry. But if industry doesn't come to you, how can you produce tailor-made results?
Just to add to what Dr. Effa said, we sourced for experts from the University of Calabar, the Faculty of Soil Science. We have soil pedologists, soil nutritionists, soil microbiologists from the University of Calabar. I think one of the lead consultants is a former dean, Professor Mrs. Gwenudin Solomon.
Okay.
Yes, so we have that. And then we have soil pedologists, soil surveyors from different universities in Nigeria. We had a team of more than 50 experts drawn from various universities across Nigeria. So the map is, there's a huge amount of local content.
Okay, thank you.
And David, I greet you. The project doesn't cover just 10%. It covers, it's supposed to do between 50 to 75%. The collateral that is provided, between 50 to 75% of what the borrower. Okay, sorry, David.
10% of funding. I mean, cost of funding, cost of funds, not
Okay.
not
Cost
project
of funds.
size.
Okay, cost of funds. Okay.
Cost of funds.
Oh yes.
Cost
Oh,
of
yes.
funds.
Yes. Thank you.
That's what I was talking.
All right. No, I go with you. All right. Okay. So over to you, madam.
Okay, I just had to let the engagement go on. Lots of comments in the chat session.
Sorry, can I just say something, madam?
Yes, please.
I am totally impressed with the level of engagement and the level of interest in this particular meeting. I would normally, when we have meetings here before I became commissioner, sometimes we could have 20, 15 people. But I can see, I'm an admin here. I can see that we're 40 and now we've come down to about 36 people. These discussions have to keep taking place. Whether we like it or not, we must use the comparative advantages that we have. There are huge market potentials. David is here, we have the Gulf of Guinea. We are strategically positioned to play in that space. We have some of the businesses that are here. We have even Northern Nigeria that we think. Northern Nigeria is a market for us. There is so much that can be done here. It blew my mind when I heard that. I was told by the consultants that they found close to over 100,000 scattered across many local governments for rain-fed wheat, the only place in Nigeria where you can find that. In the Mambila Plateau in Taraba, what you have is just 15,000 hectares. But in Cross River, you know what it is to grow wheat in 100,000 hectares? That is a big win for Cross River State. Wheat is a major grain, it's a major commodity. So it is the most important grain in the world. So there's a lot of geopolitics around commercial grains. So with these advantages that we have, we can leverage on it to play big. In terms of synergizing with the federal government, we want to go beyond rhetorics. So even for wheat development, Cross River State will pilot a minimum of 10,000 hectares. We want to be as pragmatic as possible. So when you say the federal government is intervening, it's not an audio thing. It's not something that some people, some bureaucrats will sit down and use to make money. You understand? It's that if the farms are there, and so how do we scale up? Using the support from the federal government. And the support is commercial. So we're looking at structured kind of support. Same thing we want to do in oil palm and all that. Muyi is here. I'm sure by the time we develop the framework, the strategic plan, we may start looking at specific funding for people, indigenous players in the oil palm industry. There may be funds that we can create by law in order to enable to support indigenous growers, indigenous plantation owners. Those are the kind of things. Same thing with cocoa. These are not things that you can just wake up. No bank will lend. That is
I like
truth.
that indigenous thing. Oh, keep going, keep going.
Yes, no bank, no bank is necessarily going to lend because of the long-term effect. And these banks keep short-term funds. And cocoa and especially oil palm, they require long-term funds. So the state may subsidize an aspect by creating some kind of funding mechanism. But that's not for me to say until we develop the plan. I know that a couple of us are members of that team that will be working with government to develop these plans. Those are the kind of things, even in terms, I saw a comment here on the livestock industry. The first thing is to address the feed component. That's what's killing people right now. A lot of people have dumped their ponds because they cannot buy feed. I visited a cluster last week where they do an average of about, I think about a truck or so a day. A bag of feed is going for 13 to 17,000 naira. How do you cope? What kind of funding mechanism would you even use to sustain that kind of business? So they need support. So in developing a risk model that works for them, the project grow may look at the feed component and see how to bridge it. And you have a business to business kind of activity between the feed manufacturer and the cluster, the farm cluster, those kind of things. So it will look at everything on a case by case basis. But the most important thing is that there has to be a pragmatic approach. And that's why we're having this discussion. We can have more and more of them, because whether we like it or not, for now, agriculture is the largest contributor to our state's GDP. So we just don't have a choice but to scale up from where we are. And so it's not the commissioner alone. Don't forget the commissioner is from the private sector. I'm a member of the Cross River movement. I'm not strange. So it's targeted. We all have to work together. I need your support. I need your
and a former banker as well, Abi.
And a former banker. So I'm also talking like a private sector person. I found myself in the public sector. So what I will need is your support. When the implementation begins to unfold, please, we will engage with the Cross River movement to help us disseminate information. But you cannot be in a hurry. You have to plan. I'm not someone that can be bullied. We have to plan. We haven't done it in years. We just have to plan. You can't wake up and say you're doing agriculture. It's integrated. You have to have a clear plan as to what you want to do. That's why we have remained subsistent in spite of what we have. So that's the way forward, and that's the way our governor wants it, Senator Prince Bassey too. He wants something that is holistic so that in 8 years, we will look back and say, okay, how many direct jobs have we created? Is it up to 100,000, 200,000? How many have we created? The statistics are clear because some of these things are digitally driven. How many indirect jobs have we created? How much have we impacted on the economy? How much more money have we been able to attract into the economy through agriculture? I'm sure if we do that, we probably will not make the mistakes of the past. We just have to get serious and begin to do things pragmatically. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless all of you for making our time to be here.
Thank you so much, Honorable Commissioner. Time is fast spent. We should be winding down now. We're usually supposed to close at 4:30. That's 5:30, but we are far gone into 5:15. So I'll just summarily take comments from the chat box. Honorable Commissioner, I have to give you your flowers. There are lots of comments in the chat box talking about how knowledgeable and practical you are about your role, and I must really commend you. I've had the opportunity to have a conversation with you, and I could see the in-depth and the passion that you have for the growth and development of Cross River State, and I believe that you're going to bring that to bear in your role as the Honorable Commissioner. All right. So a young man here is saying that how can a workspace support program be created for committed farmers? He is a graduate of Faculty of Agriculture, Crop Science Department, University of Calabar, and he's asking that a proper workspace support program should be created for committed farmers to expand or start up. And I believe that this is one way to bridge the gap between older generation farmers or agripreneurs and the younger generation agripreneurs. Someone has also asked about assessing loans for startups as well. Someone has also asked about, can we explore and promote community-based farming? Can the university help students start farms that leads to large-scale projects? That's one thing to consider as well. There's also a question about encouraging more of organic, using organic manure as compared to using chemical fertilizers, organic fertilizers as compared to using chemical fertilizers. I believe that that is in your plan to address. Lastly, I would say, not lastly though, but let me just mention this. Someone has mentioned about access to markets being a huge challenge due to bad roads and insecurity. So they're unable to access off-takers. So this is something that is really important to look into. Let me just scroll down to see. Okay.
Can I just do something here as a maybe like an expo?
Okay.
We've been taking we've been collating lists of farm access roads from stakeholders. Much of them are political stakeholders. I think on this platform, I give the Cross River Movement the opportunity to give us a few names of roads, farm access roads, and at least shouldn't be more than 5 kilometers. He's sending me, I know your farm. So you need access roads.
Yes, we do.
So, I mean, so let's have the list through you. I'm sure you would create a platform for people to submit those roads. Tell us the local government, the community, the stretch of the length of the road, as well as the commodity that is produced there. So we want to know what will possibly come out of that road, so that we are developing a list so that we can come in and do some work and at least clear the road for people to be able to bring out produce from the farms.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. We'll surely get that, put our hands on deck and see how much information we can get. All right, last word, let's take last words right now. Okay, let's just continue with you, Honorable Commissioner. Your last words on this event, please.
My last words is that please, I beg for trust. I know that a lot has happened in the past. There's a need to bridge the trust gap between government, its policies, and the private sector. In this case, we will look at even the lowest level, which is the farmers. Farmers do not trust government interventions. Please take this back home. For those of us that interface with farmers, tell them that the administration of Senator Prince Bassey is anchored on sincerity, transparency. And so we will deal straight with farmers. We will deal straight with players within the agro ecosystem. We will tell you what we can do, and what we cannot do, we would also tell you. So we sue for your support. Please, if you think that some of our policies are not in tandem with reality, please be nice enough to write to us. You can write officially. My number is also available. But the ministry is open to your suggestions. Please bring them and we will consider them. Things have changed. Like Dr. Effa had said, agriculture is transiting. And the manner in which we serve our people is changing. I'm not a boss here. You see how we have engaged in this meeting. My own is to serve. And I do not know it all. I don't have a monopoly of knowledge. The idea is to get knowledge from each and every one of us. I can get input from everyone, and I'm very, very open. But most importantly, please, we beg for your trust. Without your trust, we cannot disseminate our activities downstream. We need you guys as much as you need us. If you don't trust us, there's no way we can work. And if we don't work, you two will not grow. So it's a symbiotic relationship. I thank the Cross River Movement for giving me this platform, the opportunity to speak to our people. God bless you. And I wish you the best. Thank you very much. Happy new month to everybody as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay, over to you, Mr. Muyi Ladoja, please.
Well, I don't want to dilute anything that the commissioner has said, since he's a colleague and personal friend. So we definitely thank TCM for bringing all of us on this forum. It's I think it's been very rich, and we look forward to more. Let's all support the government at this time to deliver the dividends of democracy. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Inyang, Barrister Inyang, so sorry. Do you want to say anything to close what's your comment? You're muted if you want to speak.
Of course, of course. Let me just segue from the beaten path. What we may have missed out in all this conversation is that to drive and to ensure success in any of the enterprises, the value chains and everything we're talking about, security is at the heart of it. Security of capital, security of infrastructure, and security of lives and property. You will not get foreign direct investment coming into your locality if you don't guarantee security of their investment. The foreign direct investors look at how the local investors are operating within the landscape to determine whether or not they will take an informed decision to come in. So in all we're doing, it is critical to ensure that we provide the right kind of security architecture to attract the investment. Very, very essential. So that's my last word.
Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Effa.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me thank Commissioner for bringing us together, and I'm quite glad to have heard that my colleagues were part of the work. It's a landmark achievement for the state, and when it's done, the results will be outstanding. Yeah, Commissioner said we have to trust, and it's very important. If there is no trust, like the barrister said, nobody will give you a penny to invest where you cannot find trust. He's not sure of his investment. But you see, while we are begging all of us to trust, should I call them the key partners, must leverage or pay back on that trust. Because if I trust you and you dash my hopes, I will not trust you again. So Commissioner, thank you. It was a worthwhile engagement. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, host.
Thank you so much. I'd like to hand over to Omojefe Ken to take the announcement, but just before I do that, Honorable Commissioner, please, you have a question that needs urgent attention. It's been on the thread for more than 10 times. And this person is asking, please, it would be helpful to get the status of Kalachika and Ayade cocoa processing plants.
Good luck, my friend.
So you're muted.
Around some of these assets, we are reviewing those contracts. I think I'll stop there. Review them and look at what works. I told you we are being very pragmatic.
Yeah.
Some of those contracts make sense, we'll continue. But if not, I'm sure the governor will decide. That's for the governor, not me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very clear and diplomatic answer. So I hope the person who asked that question must be satisfied with that. All right, I'd like to hand over to Omojefe Kennedy, who would make his comment and take the announcement. Thank you so much for joining today's conversation. It's been engaging, it's been insightful, it's been informative, and we look forward to getting updates on the giant strikes that the industry or the sector would embark on in the coming weeks and months and years. Thank you. Kennedy, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Mrs. Thank you very much, Mr. Muyi, Commissioner. It's been an honor to have you all here today, and this discussion has been indeed very rich discussion, And this discussion was brought to you by TCRM, the Cross River Movement, which is a non-governmental organization. I'm Kennedy Omojefe, the program manager, and we are on all social media platforms at Cross River Move. And our email address, crossrivermove.com@gmail.com, our website, www.crossrivermove.com. Do all to connect with us on all our social media platforms, engage on our activities. We bring this every fortnight, and that is the next one going to be in the next 2 weeks, where we're going to be having the next TCRN conversation. And these programs are actually self-funded, mostly by open to donations. So if you'd like to air the programs for 1 hour on radios, so if you want to help us fund support funds so we can air it more time on the radio to get more people involved in this conversation, to know what the government is doing, and most importantly, how they play a role in ensuring good governance, will greatly appreciate your donation and your contributions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate and we wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you. More thanks again to our speakers, all our guests that are stayed up to this time on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And thanks to Sparkling FM for putting our event live on radio. Have a great week and see you in our next TCRM conversations. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.